It's time for Survivor Series, the WWE's Thanksgiving tradition that gets us as excited as this creepy grandpa. But more often than not, it has featured some of the worst moments ever in professional wrestling, usually leaving us all feeling, well, like a bunch of retarded, deranged pumpkins. I'm Nick Nightmare, and these are 5 of Survivor Series' worst moments. Starting off the countdown at number 5, the Montreal Screwjob, Survivor Series 1997. Yes, everyone else's most likely number 1 worst moment ever is only number 5 on this list, and there's 3 specific reasons for that. Number 1, why go with the obvious choice? Everyone hates this moment, and rightfully so. As bad as it was, I could think of far worse, as we will illustrate in this list. Second, I'm kind of over the whole thing. With Brett and Shawn burying the hatchet now, it just doesn't feel that impactful to me anymore. And third, and most importantly, is that when we look back in history, this singular moment in Survivor Series history was the catalyst for the birth of the Mr. McMahon character, which in turn set fire to the careers of many WWE superstars and effectively was the launch point for the whole Attitude Era. So in the end, it was kind of a good thing, even if you think it totally sucked. Coming in at number 4, John Cena and The Rock versus The Awesome Truth, Survivor Series 2011. There is so much about this that is just wrong and completely sucked. The Rock and John Cena were in the middle of that year-long build to their supposedly once-in-a-lifetime encounter at WrestleMania 28 and hated each other's guts. Forced together as a team by the WWE for some strange reason to take on the greatest teaming of superstars WWE could have possibly assembled, The Miz and R-Truth. Putting aside the fact that this match was a 5-alarm dumpster fire, I could have given this a pass, but the fact that the WWE booked this as the main event of the show over 2 championship matches and 1 traditional Survivor Series style match slated for that night makes this an unforgivable offense and earns this moment the number 4 spot on our list. We are halfway to that number 1 spot on this countdown with our 3rd entry, Doink The Clown, Survivor Series 1993 and 1994. Doink The Clown gets a bad rap. I actually loved Doink The Clown before WWE went ahead and ruined him, and the 1993 and 1994 editions of Survivor Series for Doink The Clown clearly illustrate how, with 2 absolutely horrible matches that were so bad we couldn't choose just one. Sorry, Doink. In 1993, Doink was in a silly but very serious program with Bam Bam Bigelow. The 2 were set to captain opposing teams at Survivor Series, but the Clown Prince of Wrestling would suffer an injury, and the WWE would decide to replace him by painting up the Bushwhackers and Men on a Mission in Doink makeup. And that would end up seeing them go up against Bam Bam Bigelow, the Head Shrinkers, and Bastion Booger to have one of the worst Survivor Series matches in WWE history. Doink would, however, get a shot at redemption, following it up the very next year in 1994 by having another one of the worst Survivor Series matches ever caught on film, as Doink the Clown was given a midget friend named Dink, and the 2 of them were terrorizing Jerry the King Lawler for some time. Long story short, no pun intended, this feud featured a Survivor Series tag team match that had both Doink and Lawler captain a team of midgets. Doink, Dink, Pink, and Wink versus Lawler, Sleazy, Queasy, and Cheesy. Cheesy is the appropriate word for this whole thing. This matchup went way too long, lasting almost 20 minutes, and was nothing but joke spots and borderline midget abuse, which just wasn't funny for anyone when all was said and done. Moving along with number 2, an entry that you all knew was coming, the gobbledygooker, Survivor Series 1990. Most of the hype around the 1990 Survivor Series was centered around one question: what's inside the egg? Many assumed it would be a debuting wrestler or some sort of a trick being played on us by a villain on the roster, but no. It's the gobbledygooker. Look at it. Disgusting. Out pops the gobbledygooker, a giant turkey man, looking like Foghorn Leghorn's inbred, mentally challenged cousin. Mean Gene tried the best he could to be excited, going as far as dancing with the nightmarish monstrosity of a bird, but it will live on in wrestling history as one of the worst surprises ever in Survivor Series history. Made even worse by the fact that inside this retarded suit was a member of the legendary Guerrero family, Hector Guerrero. Hell of a debut there, Hector. I'm so very, very sorry. This aviary abomination is a nightmare of my childhood that just seemingly will not go away, as the WWE likes to make him pop up just around this time of year, and unfortunately, he had to pop up here, and I apologize to you for that, but the gobbledygooker will forever be number 2 on this list. And finally, the number 1 top worst moment in Survivor Series history, the WWF versus the Alliance Survivor Series 2001. Most people will tell you WWE was doomed to fail with the acquisition of WCW and subsequent invasion, mainly due to the fact that nearly all WCW's homegrown mainstay talent opted to not sign with the WWE and sit at home and get paid what WCW owed them. It's also easy to say Survivor Series would have been amazing when you think of the possibility of having a team of Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H, Kane, and The Undertaker taking on an invading WCW team of Ric Flair, Sting, Goldberg, Booker T, and Diamond Dallas Page. Obviously, that would have been incredible to see, but that was not ever going to happen. But given what the WWE had to work with, they could have made this whole thing a success if we simply shuffle around a few pieces. Let's look at this matchup. There are a bunch of mistakes here. First and foremost, the WCW-ECW alliance has the WWF champion on it. And vice versa, the WWF team has the WCW title wrapped around the arms of The Rock. By that fact alone, this whole match doesn't make any sense. But I can tell you in a few easy steps how the WWE could have made this work with almost the exact same roster. The first thing they had to do was Booker T should have came into this company as the WCW champion. He was the last WCW champion and should have held it up until this point. There was no reason to have a WWE guy have the WCW championship. Secondly, due to the lack of incoming big names from WCW, all the WWE had to really do is use the ones you actually already have. Instead of having Kurt Angle and Stone Cold defecting, you should have had Chris Jericho and The Big Show and guys like Eddie Guerrero defect back to WCW. It would have been more believable. Jericho and Eddie both spent time in ECW as well, so it would have made sense to maybe have Paul Heyman lure him to the dark side, and this story takes on a whole new life. The Alliance looks to be a formidable threat. All it takes is a little bit of creativity, knowing your wrestling history, and a little bit of imagination. It could have been made into one of the biggest angles ever. Instead, we get a 5-on-5 interpromotional war where only one person in the match actually came over during the ill-fated invasion that started this whole thing. And as if that's not enough, This elimination match would come down to a one-on-one encounter between the WWE's two biggest faces ever, The Rock and Stone Cold. So how is that an inter-promotional war being settled by the two biggest faces of the WWE at the time? None of it made sense. They could have definitely made sense out of it. All they had to do was take the WCW guys they already had purchased and then put them on the WCW team. Add that to the fact that you could have made one of them an even bigger superstar by having them be the one to have been the mole in the WCW alliance all along. Maybe Eddie Guerrero. How about that? Maybe not, because the WWE just threw all their cards in the air and they gave us Survivor Series 2001, the worst Survivor Series moment in history.
Hey guys, this is Zelda Sky, and this is the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show with Nick Nightmare, right here on Sledgehammer TV. Oh yeah.
The Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.